Today I was sitting and thinking to myself, what is my environment? Who am I? I question myself, who am I? Is there something that's part of my identity, my personality, that it's not something I truly chose? Or maybe I was deceived, or maybe I saw something somewhere and I adopted a trait from someone else that I made it my own, and I think that that's who I am. This got born from the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation right now. It's like we are being fed a lot of things, and there's just a lot of chaos, and we don't know what's true, what's what, so much confusion, right? And I was thinking to myself, this is one thing now that's bringing, I guess, the political divide together. It's there's no left or right or this side or that side. It's genuinely a problem that everybody's getting along with. And just kind of made me think. I was like, how do we get so separated? How was that? How did that happen? And I was just digging deep into my life, and I was thinking, well, I like many things. I like science. I like, you philosophy. I like to um, build things from um, metal, wood. I'm just a creative person, and I think to myself, how did I become that? Why am I that guy? How did it happen? Who influenced me? Started questioning my own reality, my own life, and a lot of the things that I like, I was actually able to trace back to key people that influenced me when I was a kid. Obviously, your parents are the number one thing that they will influence you without them even trying. You're looking up to the people that are protecting you early on in your life, and you adopt some traits that they like. For example, you might like racing cars. Just an example. Well, you probably liked that because your dad was racing cars, or he liked cars, or he rode go-karts with you when you're young, and now you've grown up and you think that that's your personality. But what if you grew up in a different family where your father was a scientist, let's say. He was very fascinated about mathematics. Let's just pull that out. Would you have become a car person in your life and loved cars? Maybe so. Maybe you watched a TV show. Maybe you watched one of your family friends that loved cars. You got influenced, maybe, but statistically, you're going to become the person you are, whatever dominates around you. So if your father was a mathematician, let's say, and he was into the numbers, you have a high percent that you'll probably be loving math as well, and maybe become a scientist yourself. And it just made me think about myself and the things that I like, and how I became who I am today. A lot of the traits I linked with my father and the influence that he had over my life, looking at him and how he did things, and how he represented himself with people, and how he was a kind person. Um, well, is a kind person still, not was. And it kind of led me to the whole thing of Jeffrey Epstein, this whole divide, left, right. There's so much division in the world. And I was thinking, is someone influencing these thoughts in our head for us to believe that we are that person, so that we go about our life fighting that idea and defending it to any cost. So we'll go to war for that idea. And I started looking and breaking down, well, how does that form? What is the number one thing that could influence our kids or even us right now, or radicalize us? I've even heard a lot of people right now are very far on both sides. They're being radicalized and pushed away, but then there's a group now that's realizing, hey, there's some sort of a control that's playing both sides. That's not left or right or whatever name you want to put on it. It's actually just genuine problems of humanity. We should look at the big problems we have, you know. And I started thinking about social media and the way, you know, everything is run, and I just started thinking to myself, the power that has to create an echo chamber and a bubble around your life to make you believe that that's your reality. For example, I might be leaning more right, let's say, right? But I want to hear the other side. But it's designed in a way that it's actually difficult to have content that shows the other side. So the algorithms feed what you begin to be interested in. And the other thing is the phones listen to us. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. That is a genuine fact. And the way I know that that's a fact, because I have a business and I've ran ads before on Meta and Google and certain platforms, and you realize that when you speak the thing, for example, if I ran a lawn mowing ad, if you were somewhere in your household talking to your wife saying, "Hey, we need the lawn cut," the phone listens to those things and instantaneously starts feeding the algorithm, feeding you things that you need. And then all of a sudden you open your, you know, Facebook or Google or somewhere on your social platforms, you start getting messages about my business because I've promoted a lawn mowing business. So you start thinking to yourself, okay, so if that is the way that the phones filter out and find out what we want and what we need, then it could just as easily feed and create an echo chamber around your thought. And you think that that's a very popular thought, and you think that's very very popular, I guess, because you would sit there and think whatever you believe. You could believe in, you could love Trump, you could hate Trump, you could love you could be any person right now that loves and hates whatever. I'm not picking a side here. I'm just trying to show that what if our sides that we think and our bubbles we exist in, what if our reality is not who we truly are or want to be? It's actually influenced around from things we see, from social media to the movies that we like to watch, to the podcasts that we like to watch, to music even. So what if our reality is carefully constructed by the powers that have power over us? I guess it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. There's a certain control and power with the degree of these companies that they're at. They have power. We can be honest about that. There's nothing conspiracy about that. So what if they could create and influence politics? What if they could create and influence left-right division, black-white, race division? What if they could do that with the click of a button? Because the algorithms are quite intelligent. So if I today start searching on my phone about, let's just say, Trump and Epstein files right now, right? And whatever side I lean on, the algorithm would start pushing me into those bubbles. So essentially making me believe that I'm part of something. There's people like me out there, but then it does not show the other beliefs and the other thoughts and the other side. And I'm seeing that more and more. And it's something we should think about and reflect to ourselves and say, what are we doing to question it? How are we educating ourselves to say, you know what, this is my belief, but what's the other side? I want to hear your belief. I want to know what you have to say about this topic. And I believe if we do that, we can break the cycle of division, because it's a very, it's such a divisive, there's so much division in this world to do with anything, even politics, business, family, friends, what TV show you like, what TV show you don't like. There's so much just division in any aspect. And I think to myself, what if we just stopped and said, you know what? let me hear the other side. Let me see what the other side is. And honestly, this whole thing got born from the Jeffrey Epstein files, and I've been following that closely and just seeing what is in there, how people are responding to that. I even watched the 2 hour video that it was interview of him, and it just makes you realize that like there is evil, um, on there's evil out there, but as soon as we start not wanting to understand it and fight it, I think we're just going against and not want to understand why this thing is happening. Maybe this is such a, I guess, maybe controversial thought, but why not talk to one of those people? Instead of fear it and run away from it, why not say, you know what? I want to talk. I want to understand your belief. I want to know why you believe what you believe, and just allow the conversation to expose the truths or the lies or whatever comes out of it. Why not prompt the conversation though? No matter who you're sitting in front of, could be a murderer, it could be the most evil person. To me, it fascinates me how that person thinks. What was their influence? You got to ask yourself, what was Jeffrey Epstein's influence? What was his childhood like? What family members that he got influenced by? What's, which mentor that was the biggest influence? Like, so many questions that I think if we just block everything off, that's evil, and you run away from it, or you're stuck in your own bubble and you defend it all the way, or even the whole Trump, you know, there's a lot of people that just defend Trump all the way right now. But then you gotta be honest with yourself and ask this and say, hey, is he actually for the good side? Is he for the bad side? What is he? What does he stand on? It's kind of becoming this blurry line now, and I think a lot of people are still gonna hold on to that and fight all the way. But that's my point, is because you're in an echo chamber, your bubble you're in, it feeds your idea and makes you believe that is the truth, you're on the right path. But are we on the right path? And I'm not trying to pick sides. I'm not a political person you might think that I am. I'm aware of the politics. I'm aware of both sides. I see the division. I see the issues on both sides. I have my own stances of certain things. It doesn't mean that they can never change. Doesn't mean that I'm fixed on them. Until someone challenges me on my beliefs, then I will hold on to them, because that's the best thing that I know, that I could come up with from the variables that are in my head, the person that I've become, the content that I've been exposed to, the books that I've read, the different things that I've been exposed in my life. It's formed my beliefs, and we all have a right to have our own beliefs. But question yourself whether that's who you are. Because if it's not who you are, or if it's not your genuine thought or belief that you came to yourself, figure out where it came from. I know myself, I have a lot of thoughts into my head, that and beliefs and my character, who I am, they were not mine. They were not born by me. There were influences from other people around my life, but I know and I'm aware of them, which means that if something was wrong with that, I could actually analyze it and critically think and say, well, you know what? This thing that I've adopted and I've made it my personality and who I am, and I need to tweak it a little bit. I need to change the belief on that. But if you're not aware which thoughts are yours and which thoughts are influences from other people, then I think that's a dangerous path, because you're going to get stuck in an echo chamber, and you can very easily slip into whatever bubble, the race bubble, politically divided. And now you're going to go to war and go fight and defend that idea, but was it even yours? Do you even truly believe in that? Do you truly believe that idea and you align with it. So yeah, I guess the world is just in an interesting place. I think that we're like a child. We're growing. I'm talking as a whole civilization. We're like a child just taking our first step, and we're learning how to maneuver our emotions, how to realize things about ourselves, traumas. There's certain traumas people carry for their whole life, and it's based on family trauma, something happened in their life. I think that the more the world where it's at, it seems like a lot of chaos is happening and a lot of wars and discomfort. But I think it's a reflection of humanity's growth. I think we're as humans, we're pushing to expand and take our first step, second step, and then slowly go through the growth phase of a from a child to an adult. As a civilization, we're growing up and we're starting to realize a lot of things about ourselves. And I really think this is heavily linked with spirituality as well. We have to reflect and not neglect that aspect of the world. Religion as well. We have so much division in the religious realm. It's just, is that your belief? For example, look at it this way. Why are you Christian? Why are you Muslim? Or the reason, I'm just speaking these two, for example, but the reason you are is because you got born into that. If you were born into Asia and you're in a different country, you might be, I don't know, Buddhist. You might be a different religion. So the question is it your thought? If you're going to follow a religion, this is another one. If you're going to follow a religion, ask yourself and say, is this me? Or is it an influence of my environment? Is it that I was born into this country and the country's energy, aura, I guess you would call it, is, let's say, Muslim, and you're naturally going to become Muslim because that's what you see, that's what you learn, that's what you're exposed to. Now, does that make it right or wrong? I don't think it does. It's not right or wrong. It's just seeing and understanding and questioning everything and not being stuck. The biggest thing that I think we get stuck in is not questioning it, not saying, what's the other person have to say about that? Let me hear this person, and I'll say why. If you believe something very strong in religion, politics, whatever you want to believe, and say, why do I believe this? Why? Why do I believe that thing? And then go on the journey of seeking why. I think the more you seek that why, and you kind of step outside of yourself, of your person, and you look at yourself from an outside dimension, like if you think about yourself standing in front of yourself and just looking at yourself from a different personality and person and see who you are, I think you'll realize that a lot of things that we do are just not good for as a whole. It might feel good individually that we're doing the right thing and we're going in the right direction, but as a whole, it's a humanity, because we do have to start looking at this as a planet, as one planet. We're not a country there, a country here. There's so much division of different races. We have different cultures, but even to that, it's like, why is that culture? Why isn't there an earth culture? Why isn't there that formed? Why does it have to be my culture is this, my culture is that? And my argument is the only reason we have division in cultures is because those have been stepped back from years and years back from lineage that's been passed down into that culture, country, people, race, that they identify as that. They identify with that culture, with that religious belief, maybe with all these things. But what if the truth is somewhere in the middle? It's between everything. It's questioning everything. Like, for example, religion. I see a lot of good things in each religion, but there's no one religion that's the best. I see just good things in everything. And why can't there be a good understanding of each religion? Why does it only have to be my religion and that's it, and that's the truth, and that nothing else is can be better than what I know? What if there is, like, the question is, what if? You got to leave the room for the what if. What if there is something that could potentially be better idea than your belief that you got pushed into? So yeah, this is just a thought. Um, it's just more thinking about my own life and realizing maybe certain thoughts that I have and personality traits that I carry with myself, that when you realize it's not yours, it feels like you're like naked. I don't know. It just feels like it's like it's not my belief, because you realize, you trace it back into your childhood and you figure out yourself and you're like, yeah, that was not my thought. That was an influence from that particular person. You can pinpoint it. Maybe you went to school and maybe one of your teachers was very spiritual, religious, and now all of a sudden you're very religious in your late years, and now you can kind of say, wait, where did that get born? Maybe your family members were not, but then that one particular teacher was very, very religious, and it influenced you to become religious as well. And when you trace it back, you got to question yourself, did you choose that? Because now you can choose it. You can say, let's say, am I choosing this? Is this my choice to become religious when you're older? And you can have a bit more of a logical thinking around it, right? When you trace it back and you figure out that it's somebody else's belief that influenced you, it just feels like it's I don't know, it feels to me very strange, because I have traits about myself that I've traced back and I'm like, wow, that's not me. That's not I didn't choose that. And then now you have to kind of reinvent yourself and you have to figure out who you are. What do you like? The person that's maybe 25 or 30 years old, like, what do you like now? And then you got to question it and say, well, even the things that I'm going to say that I like, is that even the true thing that I should like? Because there's something that you might come to the realization that one thing that's been influenced from early age, and then you go and then you're like, okay, let's just figure it out now. Let's see, what do I like now? Who am I? Right? And then you go to your environment, and then if you're not careful to realize, how does your environment penetrate your bubble and create these different realities for you to see? Maybe you're very into TV shows, right? And then you got to question it now and say, okay, what do I like? And then you might say, oh, I really like creating clothing. And then that seems like it's an original thought that it came from your brain, but it actually didn't, if you trace it back. Because why do you like clothing? Why? Why do you want to make clothes? Maybe it's a hypothetical situation, but it's just the process of thinking that I'm trying to show here. Maybe you like watching a lot of shows, and maybe the people that portray the message on the shows, it's all about clothing. It's all about cool, different type of clothing, and then subconsciously your brain is absorbing that. And then now when you sit down, you're like, oh, what do I like? What do I like? I like clothing. And it feels like it's just a thought that popped into your head. It's like, oh, I really like this. Why? It's because you got influenced. So all I'm saying is, be careful about your environment and who is influencing you. You can allow to watch different things. Don't fear watching different things. But as long as you're aware of it, in a way, you can't fall into that trap of going into an echo chamber and falling into those bubbles, because you're aware of it. I watch many different things. I watch left, right wing, spirituality, Christianity, Muslim. I like to see everything. I don't isolate one thing because maybe I lean more to this side or I lean more to that side. I'll always open it up to see the other side, the other perspective. And it's kind of helped me maneuver my personality, maneuver my emotions even. I'm not as emotionally triggered and controlled, because if you think about it, you're in an echo chamber that's being carefully constructed by the tech companies that listen to your phone. And now if they can just as easily start feeding the thing that you believe that's a thought, they start feeding it with the content and the bubble that it exists out there. And then now you're very easily controllable. You might be more emotional because you can now have a crowd of people around that are saying the same thing, and then you feel this power that you can go change something now. But what if that's all constructed to play a psyop? What if that's a psyop? What if, just a what if? And we have to still ask this and question this and say, they have the power to do this. Why would they not do it? You got to say to yourself, we've proven that any human that gets power, statistically, there's a chance that they're going to do something bad with it or abuse that power. So the same thing with this thing. If we've given the power to these tech companies and to listen to us and see what we search every day, what we're interested in, and see our life and world, and then construct a careful bubble with AI, because AI is obviously used for the algorithms and things like that as well. So it can kind of mold you into whatever bubble it wants you to go into. So if they want to spike a false attack or some revolution, let's say, we're going to overthrow the government and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Well, you can just as easily fall into these bubbles, and they're going to excite you. They're going to enrage you so much because you're stuck in an echo chamber. All of a sudden, you're out there fighting and trying to change the government. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't or you should. I'm just saying was that your thought? That's all I'm trying to point here. And I'm trying to point it to myself as well, because we're not perfect. And I do catch myself sometimes maybe getting a bit more annoyed and pissed off at certain things. I'm like, why is this happening? And kind of like getting revved up and emotional. And I stop myself. I'm like, wow, okay. Who influenced me? Why do I feel enraged? Why do I feel angry? Why do I feel happy? I ask these things, and then I figure it out. I'm like, wow, I nearly got into that echo chamber and got kind of pushed into it by my emotions. So yeah, today's chat was about is your reality who you are? So yeah, ask yourself that. Is it?